castle for $1. Sounds like a billionaire's dream? No, it is a trap for those who cannot count. The real price comes later. Restoration, security, island logistics, historical status, and bills for $10, $20, and sometimes $75 million. Today, castles that look like luxury, but sometimes can ruin even very rich people. Welcome to the channel for the wealthiest.
Luxury life.
Castle, Scotland. Kinloch Castle stands on the Isle of Rum in the Inner Hebrides. Around it, mountains, sea, wind, and almost complete isolation. From the outside, it is a perfect picture for a rich recluse. A Scottish island, red stone, privacy, and the feeling that the whole world has been left beyond the horizon. It was built between 1897 and 1900 for the textile magnate Sir George Bullough. For its time, Kinloch was a technological showroom. Electricity, plumbing, luxurious interiors, an orchestrion, a ballroom, and even an early form of air conditioning. It was not a summer house, it was a demonstration of wealth, but today the numbers sound different. The castle was listed for approximately £750,000. For such a property, the price is almost laughable. But restoration could require around £20 million, and by more cautious estimates, a minimum of $10 to $15 million just for basic rescue. The problem is not only in the walls, the problem is the island. Every worker, every beam, every tool, and every load must reach Rum. There is no convenient urban logistics where a contractor arrives in the morning and leaves in the evening. Buying Kinloch is not buying a beautiful address. It is taking on a historical property that has been decaying for decades. And if an ordinary house asks for repair, this castle asks for a rescue operation. That is why the low price here is not a gift, it is a warning. Blera Castle, Italy. Blera Castle in Lazio is an example of how the word free can sound luxurious and dangerous at the same time. In 2017, Italy offered dozens of historical buildings, castles, towers, monasteries, and old estates, not for millions, but through gratuitous lease. In some cases, it was for 9 years with the possibility of extension if the investor proposed a convincing tourism project. Blera was one of those properties. The formal entry price, €0, but that did not mean the castle was being given away like a seaside villa. The condition was strict: restore, bring to working condition, and turn the property into a place that would attract tourists. That means instead of a purchase price, another bill appears. Project, engineers, restoration, safety, staff, marketing, and maintenance. Even a cautious estimate for such a property easily goes into hundreds of thousands of euros. If one builds a hotel, restaurant, or museum of a decent standard, the real budget can approach $1 million and above. That is the trap. Outside, an ancient Italian castle with no price. Inside, a contract with the state, responsibility towards cultural heritage, and the necessity to prove that you are not just a dreamer, but an operator with money. Montefiore Castle, Italy. Montefiore Castle in the Marche region looks like a frame from an expensive historical film. A hill, old stone, narrow approaches, and views that stretch towards the Adriatic. It also appeared on the list of Italian properties offered by the state through free concessions. To people, this sounds like a fairy tale, getting a castle for €0. To an investor, like a contract where the price is hidden not in the purchase, but in the obligations. Such castles were not built for comfort. They controlled roads, lands, and approaches to cities. Their thick walls, high positions, and difficult access were advantages in the Middle Ages. In the 21st century, this becomes a problem for contractors. Installing electrics, equipping bathrooms, ensuring fire safety, laying communications, and preserving the historical appearance, all of this is expensive. Even if the entry ticket for the owner is $0, the restoration budget can start from €500,000 and go beyond $1 to $2 million if the property needs to be brought up to a tourist standard. Charleville Castle, Ireland. Charleville in Ireland looks like a Gothic fantasy. Towers, pointed windows, dark silhouettes, and a forest where any rustle already sounds like the beginning of a legend. But the main problem of the castle is not just age, it is the constant fight for money. Charleville has long existed thanks to restoration efforts, volunteers, tours, donations, and events. One of the fundraising campaigns for urgent roof work set a goal of about 20,000 euros. For an ordinary house, this is a serious repair. For a castle, just one episode in a long history of survival. Here it is important to understand the scale. If the roof leaks water, more than one room suffers. Moisture goes into the wood, walls, plaster, stairs, floor structures, and historical details. The longer one waits, the faster the bill grows. Paranormal shows made it a recognizable place for ghost hunters. For tourism, this is a plus. For a private owner, a constant intrusion of outside interest. Granite Loma, Michigan, United States of America. Granite Loma is often called the most expensive log house in the world, but the word house here explains almost nothing. It is a huge forest estate on the shore of Lake Superior, an American version of a palace assembled from wood, stone, and ambition. Built in the 1920s for businessman Louis Graveret Kaufman, the estate was created as a place where wild nature meets elite comfort. Enormous halls, massive logs, a private shoreline, dozens of acres of land, and the feeling of one's own world. Prices also look like a plot for a luxury channel. The property was listed for $40 million. Then the price was reduced to $19.5 million. Minus $20.5 million, a discount that in ordinary real estate would sound like a sensation, but that did not save it for buyers. The reason is simple: remote luxury remains remote. Major cities are far away. Maintenance of a huge historical lodge is expensive. Interiors and engineering systems require modernization, and a buyer for such money usually wants the level of a 5-star hotel without compromise. There is also an interesting detail. One of the owners bought the property for $4.2 million and poured about another $4 million into restoration. That means even before luxurious finishing, this house was already absorbing millions. Tiffany Castle, Kansas City, United States of America. Tiffany Castle proves that a medieval fantasy can appear even in Kansas City. It was built in 1909 by Dr. Flavius B. Tiffany, inspired by English and Scottish castles. He wanted not just a big house, but a personal fortress overlooking the Missouri River and the East Bottoms district. Construction cost more than $75,000 at the beginning of the 20th century. At that time, it was an enormous sum. In modern money, it is roughly $2.5 to $3 million. So even at birth, this property was not just a house but an expensive statement. But historical value creates limitations. If a building has protected status, the owner cannot repair it like an ordinary mansion. One cannot simply install cheap windows, replace materials with modern analogs, or rebuild everything to one's own taste. One must coordinate, match, preserve, replicate, and pay specialists. And even if the castle itself does not cost like a palace in Manhattan, repairs can quickly move into million-dollar budgets. French Provincial Castle, New York. In New York, any unusual house is already expensive, but the French Provincial Castle in the Bronx is a separate story. The house on Grosvenor Avenue in the Fieldston district was built in 1926. Its stones were reportedly brought from the destroyed parts of a European castle and used as ballast on a ship. Therefore, this is not simply a stylization of France. Old Europe is literally built into the walls. The price also changed revealingly. The property was attempted to be sold for years. It was listed for $3.65 million. Later, about $3.5 million, then the price was lowered to about $3.2 million, and in one of the later listings, a sum of about $2.9 million appeared. For New York, this is not an insane price, but buyers are still cautious because the house is too specific. It does not look like a typical mansion. It is expensive to maintain. Repairing old stone requires specialists, and taxes, insurance, and maintenance in New York quickly add another layer of expenses to the purchase price. From the outside, it sounds like a rare chance, one's own European castle inside the city. In practice, it is a property that is difficult to sell, difficult to modernize, and difficult to explain to a buyer searching simply for modern luxury. Alima Castle, Italy. Alima Castle in Sagrado is one of the strangest properties on this list. Its history is connected not with kings and battles, but with electrotherapy. At the end of the 19th century, the Alima family opened a therapeutic center here, where electricity was considered a progressive medical procedure. Back then, it sounded like the future. Today, like the set for a Gothic film. Later, the building changed function. It was associated with a military hospital, a school, and long attempts at restoration. In the end, the romance of the old building turned into the accounting of restoration. The numbers speak louder than legends. For one of the work stages, 255,000 euros were allocated. Later, it was reported that about 1.7 million euros had already been poured into restoration. Then the region allocated another 450,000 euros to continue the project and bring the building to a new function. This is a good example of how historical real estate works. First, it seems that one just needs to bring a beautiful castle back to life. Then it turns out that bringing it back to life costs millions. And after the external works, the interiors, engineering, accessibility, safety, and commercial models still remain. Khotyn Fortress, Ukraine. Khotyn Fortress stands above the Dniester as if it still controls the entire valley. Massive walls, towers, deep historical memory, and a view that easily transforms into cinema. This fortress appeared in films and remains one of the most recognizable historical sites of Ukraine. But its value is not that it looks beautiful. It was a strategic point for centuries, controlled trade routes, and withstood military pressure. Currently, the site works as a reserve. The official adult ticket was indicated at a level of about 100 hryvnias, and in separate tourist offers sums of 80 to 140 hryvnias can be found. This is an inexpensive entry for a visitor, but an almost symbolic sum compared to the real costs of maintenance. A fortress of this scale cannot be evaluated like a house. Here, money goes to walls tens of meters high, safety, stone masonry, territory, museums, and emergency works. In 2026, reports appeared about a partial collapse of a wall, and this immediately shows the reality. Even great monuments age physically. One damaged section can require not cosmetics, but serious engineering intervention. If one imagines Khotyn as a private property, the conversation would be not about the purchase price, but about multi-million-dollar responsibility. Eltz Castle, Germany. Eltz Castle looks like the perfect screensaver for a film about medieval Europe. Forest, rock, towers, and the feeling that almost nothing has changed here for 800 years. The main feature of Eltz is continuity. It has remained in one family for centuries and was not destroyed like many other European castles. This makes it an almost ideal historical property, but ideal condition costs money every season. A regular adult ticket now costs about 14 euros, a family ticket about 34 euros. These sums look small, but behind them stands a whole financial logic. Tourists pay for romance, and the owners direct the flow of people towards the preservation of the building. Because the castle does not service itself. Guides, security, insurance, cleaning, restorers, care of collections, visitor safety, repair of the roof, wood, stone, and engineering systems are needed. If tens of thousands of people come during the season, the income is already noticeable. But the load is also noticeable. Every visitor is wear, responsibility, and risk. Eltz proves an important thing. Even if a castle is not ruined and not cursed, it still demands a constant money flow. Chillingham Castle, England. Chillingham is one of the most famous haunted castles in England. And unlike ordinary scary stories, here the reputation has long become part of the business. The castle has a centuries-old history and protected status. This means repairs cannot be done quickly and haphazardly. Electrics, plumbing, walls, windows, roof, everything is linked to the rules of preserving the historical appearance. But the main commercial strength of Chillingham is darkness. Stories are told here about the Blue Boy, the White Lady, Lady Mary Berkeley, dungeons, and the torture chamber. For a tourist, this is emotion. For the owner, a way to keep the property afloat. A daytime adult ticket costs about £15, an evening ghost tour about £25. Nighttime ghost hunts can cost roughly £50 per person. That means the castle monetizes not only architecture, but also fear. This works as long as the property remains an attraction. But as a private home, Chillingham becomes a problem. Casa Loma, Canada. Casa Loma is not just a Toronto landmark. It is a moment when personal ambition became a city symbol. Sir Henry Pilot built this Gothic mansion as a private residence. Almost 100 rooms, towers, secret passages, halls, stairs, and a scale more suited to European aristocracy than to a Canadian financier of the early 20th century. Construction took about 3 years and cost approximately $3.5 million in the money of that time. It was an unbelievable sum for a private house. Today, such a project would correspond to the level of tens of millions of dollars. But Casa Loma showed that even a wealthy owner can lose to his own scale. Taxes, maintenance, war, economic pressure, and operational costs made upkeep too heavy. Now Casa Loma is a museum, event space, and tourist magnet. And that is precisely why private ownership is almost impossible to imagine. One adult ticket costs tens of Canadian dollars. Events bring separate income, filming adds status. Only such a public format gives the building a chance to justify the expenses. Castle of Good Hope, South Africa. The Castle of Good Hope in Cape Town is not a romantic palace. It is a war machine made of stone. It was built by the Dutch East India Company in the 17th century. The pentagonal shape, thick walls, and defensive logic show that comfort was secondary here. The main thing was control, garrison, warehouse, administration, and power. Today, it is one of the most important historical sites in South Africa. It cannot be perceived as beautiful real estate that one can buy and close off for oneself. An adult ticket costs about 50 South African rands. For a visitor, this is an almost symbolic price for entry to a huge layer of history. But for the owner of such a property, if it were private, expenses would be measured in completely different numbers. One must maintain the walls, museum spaces, security, staff, infrastructure, excursions, safety, and the historical environment. This is no longer the level of a private home. This is the level of an institution. Chateau Frontenac, Canada. Chateau Frontenac rises above Quebec City like a crown over the old town. In photographs, it looks like a European castle, but in reality, it is a luxurious hotel created by the era of grand railway journeys. It opened in 1893 and became part of an idea. A journey must be not just a displacement, but an event. The guest arrives not at a room, the guest arrives at a legend. But the legend requires enormous amounts of money. In 2014, Chateau Frontenac underwent a renovation costing roughly $75 million. The hotel was renewed from top to bottom, preserving the historical character and simultaneously bringing the service to the level of a modern luxury guest experience. The building has more than 600 rooms, restaurants, event spaces, engineering systems, staff, security, maintenance, and a constant flow of tourists. Such a property cannot be the hobby of one owner. It must work like a complex hotel machine. If someone dreamed of turning it into a private castle, the question would be not only about the purchase price, the question would be about why destroy the business model that allows the building to live. Number 1. Kimball Castle, New Hampshire, United States of America. Kimball Castle above Lake Winnipesaukee was once the American dream of European grandeur. It was built in the 1890s by railroad executive Benjamin Ames Kimball. Granite, a hill, a view of the lake, and the silhouette of a fortress were supposed to say, America can also create aristocratic luxury. The initial cost was about $50,000. In the 1890s, this was enormous money, a sum that would correspond today to a multi-million-dollar project. But the main number in the history of Kimball appeared much later. When the castle fell into decay, the necessity of roughly $10 million was discussed to realistically save the property. Without such an infusion, the conversation was no longer about restoration, but about deconstruction and partial preservation of ruins. Then the situation became even worse. In 2025, a fire seriously damaged the structure, and the castle effectively turned into a dangerous remnant. Predjama Castle, Slovenia. Predjama Castle looks as if it was built not into a rock but into a legend. It stands directly at the mouth of a cave, Part of the walls merges with the mountain, part disappears into darkness, and the whole object seems like an impossible engineering trick. For a tourist, it is one of the most striking castles in Europe. For an owner, a nightmare of exploitation. Cave means moisture. Moisture means risk for stone, wood, plaster, and any modern systems. Temperature changes, water goes through the rock, air works against the building. Here one cannot simply insulate the walls, install ordinary utilities, and forget. A regular adult ticket to Predjama costs about 21.5 euros. Combined tickets with Postojnje can cost about 46.5 euros. This is the correct model, not one owner paying for the miracle, but thousands of visitors financing its existence. If one imagines Predjama as a private home, the price would become absurd, not even because of the purchase, but because of the eternal battle against nature. Houska Castle, Czech Republic. Houska Castle is famous for a legend that sounds stronger than any advertising campaign. It was supposedly built over the gates to hell. Most medieval fortresses were placed to protect roads, rivers, or borders. Houska looks different. According to the legend, its task was not to keep enemies outside, but to lock something underground. Historically, the castle had ordinary functions as well, but in the mass consciousness, it is precisely this story that won. And today, it works like a magnet. A standard adult ticket costs about 180 Czech crowns. An additional infernal entrance, about 80 crowns. That means the visitor pays not only for the walls, but also for the promise to touch the scariest myth of this place. Leap Castle, Ireland. Leap Castle is one of the darkest castles in Ireland. Its history consists not of beautiful balls, but of murders, betrayal, and rumors that were repeated for too long to disappear. The most famous part is the Bloody Chapel. According to the legend, a priest was killed there by his own brother during a power struggle. But even more terrible is the story of the Oubliette, a hidden chamber where people could be dropped through a hatch, left to die in the darkness. In such places, the past cannot be removed with expensive furniture. The financial part looks almost absurd. Visitors reported an entry donation of about 6 euros towards restoration. 6 euros for access to a place with one of the heaviest reputations in Europe, but for the building, it is a drop. Restoration of an old Irish castle means roof, stone, beams, safety, access, humidity, heating, and years of careful work. Even if the owner looks after the property with his own hands, the real cost of restoration can easily go into hundreds of thousands of euros. Himeji Castle, Japan. Himeji is not just a beautiful castle. It is a national treasure of Japan and one of the most perfect examples of Japanese castle architecture. White walls, complex roofs, defensive passages, gates, and traps create an image of lightness, although in reality it is a meticulously planned military system. Beauty here does not decorate the defense, it masks it. Himeji is impossible to buy, not because it is too expensive. It is impossible to buy because it is not supposed to have a private price. The property is on the UNESCO World Heritage List and belongs to the cultural identity of the country. Therefore, the monetary model here is completely different. Not a sale to one billionaire, but access for millions of people. From March 2026, an adult ticket for visitors over the age of 18 is about 2,500 yen. For residents of Himeji City, about 1,000 yen. A combined ticket with cocoa and garden, about 2,600 yen. These sums do not reflect the real cost of the castle. They reflect a way to support the property without turning it into a commodity. Himeji also has the legend of the servant Okiku, who was allegedly killed and thrown into a well. But even such a story does not make the castle scary real estate. It is above the market. Himeji is an example that some properties are too important for luxury real estate. They cannot be bought, and that is precisely why they are priceless. Bannerman Castle, New York, United States of America. Bannerman Castle on Palapel Island in the Hudson River looks like an ideal ruin for a film. Water, trees, broken walls, and a silhouette that seems like a remnant of a forgotten kingdom. But its history is not royal. It was a warehouse. Francis Bannerman VI earned a fortune on military surplus, and around 1900 began building a structure on the island that was simultaneously a storage facility, an advertisement, and a personal fantasy in the shape of a castle. Then came fire, destruction, and decades of aging. Today, the romance of the ruin is maintained through organized tours, foundations, events, and a constant struggle for safety. A regular excursion to the island costs roughly $40 to $45, and tours with travel from New York City can reach about $70. This is not just a ticket for a walk. This is a small part of the budget needed to stabilize the ruins, maintain access, ensure visitors, and prevent the property from disappearing. If a private buyer took Bannerman as a personal project, he would receive an island, complex logistics, emergency condition walls, public attention, and a moral prohibition on crude demolition. From the other shore, it looks like magic. In an estimate, like a catastrophe. A castle for $1 sounds like the best luxury bonus in the world. But castles were never cheap. Not when they were built, not when they were defended, not when they are being saved today. The real price of a castle is not the sum in the listing. The real price is everything that comes after. So the question is not whether you would buy a castle for $1. The question is different. Would you want to own it after the first repair bill? And for most people, even very rich ones, the answer will be no. Write in the comments everything you think about this and subscribe to the channel for the wealthiest. Here it is about luxury, wealth, and the lives of the most influential people on the planet. And right now, watch the previous episodes that have already appeared on your screen. Thank you for watching.